Now, we have a very special service today because, as Oprah said, you're going to get a car, you're going to get a car, you're going to get a car. No, you're not going to get a car, but you are going to get a very special envelope. And I have some helpers on the front row who are going to help me hand these out. So make sure that you grab one of these envelopes as they hand them out. What a beautiful passage of scripture that was read, and that is our anchor this morning. And as I said, you came to church on a wonderful Sunday, because whenever we have these verses, these well-known verses from Jesus, we know we are going to be blessed. And you're going to be blessed, you're going to be blessed, you're going to be blessed, and I'm going to be blessed as we look at these. Now, what we have here are some envelopes, and as it says, do not open until instructed, right? So you're not allowed to open it. Don't be opening it yet, because it's not time. You know, sometimes when there's Christmas presents, I don't know if you did this when you were little. I know my kids sometimes do this. They shake it and they wonder what's inside, and they kind of they press the paper to see, what do you think's inside? You can do that, but you can't open until instructed. That's what it says up there, right? Now, this passage of scripture that was read to us is often referred to as the Great Invitation. Such a beautiful scripture. And I thought I would ask you today, what is the greatest invitation you've ever had? Maybe it was from Nikki Boyd saying, you're invited to receive an award. Maybe. Maybe it's like a wedding invitation. And can I say, those of us who have gone through a wedding, do you remember how important the invitations are? So for me as a young man, I realized that's almost like the most important thing that you have to grapple with, because you have to figure out, okay, what paper do we put it on? What do we say on the invitation? And then, of course, you have to decide who's in and who's out, right? So I think we spent the most time in a wedding looking at the invitations, and invitations are really important. Maybe you got an invitation to a wedding, or maybe you got an invitation to a job, or, you know, sometimes people will post on social media getting accepted into their university course, right? And they'll jump up and down, oh, I got accepted by Harvard, or whatever. And they get very excited. So maybe that was your greatest invitation. Maybe it was your first date. Who remembers the first date? Someone special in your life. Yes, you remember. Vera remembers. And, you know, isn't that a great invitation? You know, to receive a first date invitation. I remember once trying to go on a first date, and I was quite shy. And so I wasn't explaining myself very well. I was sort of saying, so do you like food? What do you like to do on Friday nights? Have you ever been to McDonald's? And finally she said to me, are you inviting me somewhere? Is this an invitation? Is this a date? And I must have blushed and said, well, maybe. And so, yeah, invitations like that. Now, why are invitations so important? Well, I've put on the board some of the reasons why invitations are important. And really, I think it's because an invitation is personal. It's personal. It says something. It says that somebody wants the pleasure of your presence, your company, isn't it? That's a good way to ask for a date. It's better than saying, do you like food? Somebody wants you, and somebody thought of you too, isn't it? When you have a good invitation, it's saying somebody thought of you. And also somebody is using your name. Invitations are personal. And so what we want to do this morning is look at my greatest invitation. And there it is on the screen. You can actually see this. Now, this was an invitation for me to go to, and I like this, a royal feast. Now, I think it would be fun to go to any feast, but a royal feast, That was special. Now, I happened to be in the island of Tonga as a musician, and I received this invitation. And if you look at it, it's really well written. It's got the seal of the king there. And it says, on the occasion of the celebration of the 80th birthday of His Majesty, King Taufa Ahau Tupou the Fourth, no less. And the Prime Minister, then this is the Prime Minister of the island of Tonga, the Honourable Baron Vea of Huma. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. But he requests the pleasure of the company of, and then there's a line, and somebody put my name in there. And I was so thrilled and excited by that. So I happened to be in Tonga, and what happened was I sat down next to a lady, and she said, my friend organizes musical events for the royal family of Tonga. And I said, oh, I'm a bit of a singer. And she said, really? Well, go meet my friend. And I went and I met this lady's friend. And she said to me, oh, you're a singer. Why don't you come and sing for the royal family? Because the princess is having her birthday on Friday night. And so sure enough, I said, yes, I'll be there. I'll do that. And I was then invited back to the island for the king's 80th birthday. And as you can see there, it says it's a royal feast followed by traditional entertainments. And it says the time and place. And down in the corner, you might actually see it says RSVP. Now, we might give away a free chocolate to anyone who can tell us, what does RSVP stand for? I think Glenn knows. Let's see if anyone, well, let's hear the kids. What do you think? Reply? Island? No? Okay. Oh, I think someone, does anyone speak French here? Is that what you do? Are you into the French? Glenn's onto the French. So you onto the French, Linda? It's actually French for what?
Respondez s'il vous plaît.
Exactly. Respondez s'il vous plaît, which means please respond. So usually, yes, for a wedding or for an important invitation, you actually need to respond. And as you can see there, the dress code was national lounge suit. Guests are requested to bring this card and be seated by 12:20. And I do remember that feast because they actually had trucks or utes, and on the back of utes were tables, and on the tables were piled up with food, and all of the king's people in Tonga were bringing all of this food to place in a big football field. Lines of all the villages had put all their food there, and it was a special feast. And so that was, I think, my greatest invitation, almost as good as Lisa's invitation to Nicky Boyd. Can anyone else have a royal connection like that? I don't know. Anyway, what we can say this morning is that this scripture is called the Great Invitation. And we could say this is actually a royal invitation. Let's read this together. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. A beautiful passage of scripture. And what we're going to say as we look at this scripture this morning, there's really three movements. Three movements in this invitation. And the first one is come. Now, can you spot the word come up there? Come. That's the part of the invitation is come. Come. You know, Jesus talked about the person that throws a party, sends out the message. When his friends didn't want to show up, he sent out a message and said, you find everyone in the streets and invite them to come. The second movement is the word learn, right? The word learn is there. Can anyone see the word learn in there? Learn from me. That's the second movement. And that actually tells us that this is not just a once-off event, but there's an ongoing relationship. So my visit to the king and his feast, that happened, and then I had to go home and come back to Australia. It's gone. It's in the past. But this invitation says learn. And the third movement in this beautiful invitation is the word rest. Rest. And isn't that so much what we all need in this life? to rest. So we have come, we have learn, and we have rest. So just to look a little closer at this, the invitation to come is acknowledging that as humans, we all have a lot to carry. We all have a lot to go through. We have the stresses of life, the grief of losing something or someone. We can have to carry things like guilt or loneliness. These are things that we carry in our life. And of course, there are the life pressures that we have. It's something that every person knows. We have these things to carry. But the word come is Jesus saying to you and to me, you don't have to carry it alone. That's what it means when it says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. The word come, this movement of come is saying, you don't have to carry it alone. The second one, this idea of learning, it's there. It says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Jesus isn't just simply offering like relief and saying, well, I'm going to fix you. He's offering a different way of living, a completely different way, so that when you do come to him, now your life is different. Now, we have to acknowledge that the world's way of living is different to what Jesus was introducing to our world. If we think about our society, would you agree there is a lot of pressure to hurry in this life? There's a lot of pressure to achieve things in this life. There's a lot of pressure to be on show, to perform, and to be productive. I was thinking that Shakespeare said that all the world is a stage and each of us must play a part. And there is a sense in which we know that our lives are short. Our lives are short. And as one poet said, we should gather rosebuds while ye may, right? Gather ye rosebuds while you may, because your time is short. And this is a pressure that we feel in life. And even the phrase carpe diem, you know that phrase, seize the moment. And there is this pressure in life that we always have to be on the go. But then Jesus is now introducing this concept of rest and a different way of living, which we could say is about trusting him. It's about gentleness. It's about humility. It's about this idea of Sabbath, that God institutes the Sabbath as part of a rhythm of creation and saying, on the seventh day you shall rest. Introducing this concept that we don't always have to be on the go. And the beauty of the gospel is that we are actually accepted not for what we achieve or produce or do. We are accepted because he loves us as we are, just as we are. So when it says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, there is a whole new pathway that Jesus offers for us. And he says, for I am gentle and humble in heart. And you know, I like that phrase because a lot of people wonder, what is God like? And you know, the ancient Greeks and some of the Babylonians, the ancient people, they used to believe that there was a God, there were gods, there were more than one God, and they created humans, and they created them to serve the gods, and they created them sort of like as toys for the gods. And there was this idea that God is angry, and you don't want to upset God. And here we have Jesus telling us what his personality is. And it's not what you expect from the creator of the universe. Because he says, I am gentle and humble in heart. Now that is not saying I am powerful, is it? It's not saying I am powerful, I am holy, I am demanding, and I am disappointed in you. That's not what he says. He's not even saying I'm impatient, get your act together. He's saying I am gentle. And I love that because if you actually boil down to what the word gentle means, it means calm and kind and soft and the opposite of violent or severe. That's what gentle is. And added to gentle is this word humble, which literally means that someone is tending to consider themselves as having no special importance that makes them better than others and not proud. And here is Jesus saying, this is who I am. I am gentle. I am humble. Two attributes. Wouldn't it be nice if some of our politicians could aspire to gentleness and humbleness? I don't know. But it's not necessarily the way of the world, is it? It's not what our world practices, but it is the way of Christ, and it is what we learn from him, to be gentle and humble in heart. Now, what was the first movement? Come. What was the second? Learn. The third movement is rest. Now, this idea of rest is not lying down and being lazy. So we can't say, okay, well, I don't need to do anything in this life. I'm just going to lie around. It's also not saying I need to, that you come to Jesus and you escape, like escapism. He's going to take you away from all your problems. Is that what it's saying? No. His idea of rest is different from that. It's also not sleep, right? It's not, I know when something bad happens, you might have had this experience. If you have to go through something traumatic, something difficult, then sleep becomes a medicine, because I don't know if you've had this experience, but if you've gone through something difficult, when you sleep, you have some relief from the circumstances, the reality of the situation you're in. But then you wake up and you're back to the real world, and you go, oh no, this reality is upon me. And we sometimes long to go back to sleep where I don't have to deal with the reality that surrounds me. But that is not what Jesus is talking about sleep as escapism or as laziness. It's more like one of these, right? It's more like you have one of these. But if you just use this all the time, what happens to the battery? It just runs out. And what we don't do when our phones run out of battery is go, oh, get me a new one, right? No, what we do is we put it on the charger and we recharge it. And what is the phone doing when it's being recharged? It is resting. And that is what human beings are crying out for. And that is actually what Jesus is offering to us in this idea of rest. It's more like recharging the battery. He is offering a whole new way of living and a new rhythm for our souls. And what I also notice, and you'll notice this too, is he doesn't just say you will find rest. He says you will find rest for your souls. And that's amazing to me, because just recently we talked about the fact that in our lives, there's certain deep places in our lives where we sometimes have to even hide things that we've been through, or there's things that we struggle with, and we put the curtain over and we cover it up because it's like so deep, and it's very difficult to share that. But what Jesus is saying, that deepest part of you is where I bring you rest. This is not just a physical rest where you rest a while and then you get up and you get tired again. He's saying rest for your souls. And the soul is that deep place within us. Then there's this passage, this invitation ends by saying that my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And we say, what is this yoke? Is that something to do with eggs? I wondered that. There's actually a picture of a yoke there, right? It's what binds the two ox together. And Jesus is saying, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And he's actually putting that image of farming into people's minds as he shares this invitation. And he says, my yoke is easy. But you look at it and you go, no, it doesn't look easy because now I'm chained to this and it seems heavy. But actually, as you dig in a little bit closer, that word easy doesn't necessarily mean, oh, everything's going to be simple now, or it's going to be effortless. The actual Greek word, which is Christos, similar to Christos, which is Christ, but Christos, that actually means that his yoke is kind. His yoke is good. And I like this too. It's well-suited. Well-suited, right? So he's actually saying, when you're with me, then actually you're in the right place. Because in this light, we do have a yoke to this world that we live in, which is heavy. And the burdens are heavy. But if you're yoked to him, then it's easy. You know, in fact, what they would do with a yoke is they would put an inexperienced animal next to an experienced animal. And the experienced animal, a strong animal, would lead the way and teach the other animal. And so we see that picture of Jesus. Jesus doesn't invite us to a life with no yoke, all right? That means we don't come into Jesus and everything will just sail along, and this is what we have to understand. But he invites us to exchange the yoke we've been carrying for his yoke. That is the great invitation right there, that you exchange carrying this burden by yourself to allow him to carry it with you. I saw this beautiful painting. It's by Maria Lang. And she tried to capture this particular part of the great invitation. And she's really asking, can you see yourself in this great invitation? Because remember, invitations are personal. And so she painted this beautifully, and you might see some resemblance to another one of our symbols that we have in church, right? The yoke. But you also see the yoke, right? You can see them both. And this is what she says. She says, if we're learning from Jesus, as he says, under a yoke, that means he's walking with us. When an ox is being trained, it's tied to a yoke, along with a more experienced ox. If Jesus is asking us to learn from him by carrying a yoke, he's teaching us by carrying it with us. We aren't alone. And not only is he with us, he's asking us to walk so intimately with him. It's not a burden, it's a privilege. I wanted to paint how beautiful that shared experience of carrying the yoke would be if we'd allow ourselves to share it with him. She's describing why she painted this. We carry it anyway. Would we rather shoulder the burden alone and feel its full weight, or walk so closely with him? Jesus also said, if any man would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. The yoke and the cross are two analogies for the same. I wanted to combine them because if we take up our crosses daily, he's there with us. May we find ourselves in his arms. Now we come to a little something that's special, and you did get those envelopes. You're now allowed to hold those envelopes. Don't open them yet. But as we hold them, let's just remind ourselves of this great invitation. Because actually, as you go over what it says, look for this when you next see this passage. He's not saying, come to a religion, come to a church. He's saying, come to me. Isn't that what it says? Come unto me. Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden. It's also, he's not saying learn a philosophy, learn a religion. He's actually saying learn from me. And also, if you look at the concept of rest, it's not just you'll find relaxation or nirvana or peace. He's actually saying you will find rest for your souls. Rest from me, rest in me. So we can say that the Great Invitation is an invitation not to a single event like a royal feast, but it's to a relationship. It's an invitation to a relationship. The second thing we can also say is that it's an invitation to transformation. Because when he says come, that's an invitation to belong. When he says learn, That's an invitation to become. And when he says rest, that's an invitation to breathe. We see this. The movement is come, learn, and rest, which is another way of saying invitation, relationship, transformation. That's what Christianity is. That's our faith that millions, perhaps billions around the world embrace. At the heart of our faith is this invitation to come and to learn and to rest. You will find rest for your souls. So here you go. Here's your permission. Right now, open up your invitation, your envelope. Have a look at what it says. And you will notice something about it. It's a little bit like the royal invitation that I received because it's from a king. And there's a blank space there. There's a blank space there. And this morning, in front of your seat, there's a pencil. Or behind your seat, there's a pencil. You can write your name in there because it is personal. Jesus said, come to me, all of you. That leaves no one out. Then just write your name. If you're hearing this morning, write your name on that blank space. And then we'll just take a moment of quiet for you to reread that. And read it this time addressed to the person whose name is on the top. Now, there's one thing that every invitation has. And can I tell you, this is actually the heart of the Christian faith. There's one thing that every invitation has. And it's in French, right? What does it say? RSVP. Now, we're going to read it together again. And for people watching online, this is what the invitation says. Let's read this together. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.